Friends, in this video for ithought Advisor, I am going to talk to you on the topic advisory in 22-23. A new year is born, new regulations are in place, a lot of changes are happening, the investor is surely in a good place, and the advisory business is set for another wave of transformation. The key thing about an advisory practice is it has to keep evolving continuously. It has to keep improving itself to meet expectations of both investors and of regulation. This is something that has been the hallmark of the advisory evolution in the last 5 years. The next 5 years is probably going to see far more transformation. Clearly, technology may well become the centerpiece of this transformation. At the moment, though technology plays a big part in the advisory space, we have no idea how this is being done duly taking care of the investor interest. Let me explain. There are a lot of tech enabled advisory solutions where by the click of a button you are able to buy into a portfolio. Now, this definitely makes the job of investing a lot easier. But we seem to have forgotten one basic core issue. That is, when you click and buy a portfolio, if the choice of investments are not so liquid, then you are immediately subjecting your portfolio to impact cost. I know there are a lot of small custom-made portfolios, you call them by different names, where by a click of a button you buy small caps and micro caps in portfolios. Clearly, advice given here comes with a high impact cost. What the investor thinks is that my fee is very low, so this is a great product. But if you calculate the impact cost of such investing, then that makes the cost of executing the advice very high. Clearly, advisory practices have to improve on delivering with respect to impact cost, and in that sense technology is actually a villain and not a friend. Now let us come to another aspect of how advice gets delivered and executed. That's another area which is extremely vulnerable even today. Let me explain. An advisor sends you an advice electronically. You receive it in your mail and then you have to go and act on it. Now, most people are very slow in seeing the advice and they are taking their own sweet time because they are layering their judgment over the advisor's advice. Now, when judgment gets layered, it leads to delay, and often advice has to be implemented in a timely manner because the advisor recognizes an opportunity, immediately comes to you and tells you, please take up this advice. Now, if you are going to take a week, then in the interim period, a lot of things can happen. So, delay and procrastination, layering of judgment is the second area where advisory is still grappling with impact cost. Because when you do this, an impact cost gets created because you're waiting and waiting and waiting. Sometimes the price moves up 4-5% in the interim. Sometimes you even miss out on executing the advice in a very critical decision. I have seen this before. We give advice to buy, let's say, a NASDAQ fund, just an ETF in the lows of 2020. But investors layer the judgment for such a long time that they don't execute. And then the NASDAQ goes up like you saw. When you have an investment where the advisor says buy 5% of NASDAQ 100 in your portfolio, you layer the judgment, you don't act on his advice, you miss the opportunity, then what happens is that advice which could have given you a 100% return on the 5% position does not find a place in your portfolio. Naturally, your overall portfolio returns do not go up by 5% absolute, which is what it would have been, and you will find that the advisor's advice to you has not delivered returns. But was it really the advice to blame? Actually, in such situations, it's the lag, the layering and the indecisiveness which costs dearly. Now, investors always tend to externalize the reasons for not doing what the advisor suggests. Advisors also have a tendency to externalize and say, oh, I told the investor, but he didn't act, so he didn't make the money. So, both parties may end up externalizing the situation instead of trying to internalize the decision and collectively getting to a conclusion and acting in a timely manner. Now, this again is a great contributor to impact cost and also portfolio impact, because when you fail to act, your portfolio returns end up being lower than your peer with the same advisor who acts diligently. So, this is another aspect which is only going to rise in the future, because competition for ideas is very intense. So, when an advisor comes with an idea, the idea doesn't wait for you to make up your mind. You can't take your own sweet time. Decisions must be made in a timely way and executed by the investor. After all, the execution is your responsibility and not really the advisor's responsibility. The other aspect of the advisory business which will go through a lot of churn is how the invoicing, the billing and the compliance is going to be handled in the digital era, because when we did it physically, there was document creation and holding. Now, where these documents are going to be created, published, shared with the client and stored is something which a lot of people are not very clear about. As an investor, you need to understand how your advisor or platform stores the advice given to you and is able to produce it later to the regulatory authorities or for audits. This is something which again has to be thoroughly seen and understood before you take on digital advice. The whole advisory space will probably go in for more transformation in the next few years than they did in the last 5. The stage is set and we are going to see investors take more and more support from advisors in the future. This is an early stage industry headed for stable, strong future growth. Thank you for watching this video and being a part of our ithought RIA advisory practice. Thank you very much.